All right, we're live.
Okay.
So I'm going to let people get started and get caught up, and we're going to play music for a little bit until they get started.
Perfect.
Hey. I'm going to start in a minute or two here. Just want to let you know that Kyle Schlachter says hi to both of y'all.
Hey, Kyle.
Hi.
So everybody's going to be able to go watch the Thunderbirds fly over, right, today?
Yes.
Yep, we're going to announce that. Yeah, the map is actually going to be up on the Facebook page. I know that Centennial made the cut, so if people have never seen an air show and the skies work out and collaborate with us, then you'll be able to look out your window and check out the Thunderbirds flying. Up, we're joined by Alana Spiegel too.
Hi, Ilana.
Hi.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up going to air shows just because my dad was in the Air Force, and that's as a kid I always wanted to be a pilot. That was always that, and that's what spurred it on. When you get to see some of these amazing machines, whether we're talking about jets or bombers or helicopters up flying in the air, man, it becomes something that you want to be a part of for sure.
That is true. I mean, even when I was in the Air Force, where air shows were part of my life, and then when I married a pilot, they became even more so.
There you go. Did he ever fly private? Did Boy ever fly? Did he ever fly privately or take you up?
No, he never flew privately.
Okay.
We had a friend here who just passed away a few weeks ago. And when we first moved here, he and his friend, they took the kids up individually in his friend's private plane, which was kind of cool for them to get to experience flying. It was a 2-engine prop, and they went up, and he let the kids have the controls. So
that's awesome.
6 of them got to do it, and nobody became a pilot after that. I don't know.
And I remember the first time I ever picked up in a helicopter, it was like, have you ever had an experience that was so impactful and so happy that like you just had a perma-grin on your face? Like you couldn't even help it. And that's what it felt like the first time I picked up in a helicopter. I was like, that's when I knew. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. All right, we're going to get started here. My name is David Ortiz. I'm running for the Colorado State House here in HD 38. And, during a time when we're all cooped up in our house trying to do the right thing for our frontline workers and those essential personnel, we thought we'd, make sure that we engage everybody and inform everybody about the great work that's happening at all levels of government. And highlights today, we're trying to highlight 2 amazing women on the Centennial City Council. We've got Candace Moon, if you want to give a wave there.
Hi.
There we go. And we've got Christine Sweetland.
Hi, everybody.
Joining us today. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to do brief intros, and we'll start this conversation. So Candace, if you want to take it away.
Hi, I'm Candace Moon, and I'm a supporter for David Ortiz. I am representing District 1, City of Centennial. This is my second term as a council member on the council. I have committees that I'm assigned to. I am assigned to the Airport Noise Roundtable, Littleton Public Schools, and the Youth Commission. So needless to say, with all the excitement today about the Thunderbirds giving honor to our first responders, we're very happy about that happening. We had nothing to do with it, though. But they have pinpointed Centennial is quite an honor for the people in our city who are our first responders. I've got neighbors who are first responders and close friends, so I'm really happy that they're going to be recognized for their work during this pandemic.
Right. All right, Christina, you want to give us a brief intro?
Sure. I'm Christine Sweetland. I'm council member representing District 2 in Centennial. I was recently elected in November, so this is my first few months on City Council. It's been quite a learning experience, and grateful for people like Candace to help mentor and bring me along and understand what's happening in how the day-to-day operations of the city work and what being on council actually means. I have lived in Centennial for almost 20 years. I've got 2 boys, one who is home now from college a little bit earlier than expected, and the other that is a sophomore at Arapahoe. And just a highlight for me today, obviously the Thunderbirds with the first responders and having some really close friends that are working in ICU units and helping with patients. I think it's going to be really important to just show our appreciation to those first responders. And so I think it's great that that's happening. And then the Arapahoe staff yesterday went to all the seniors that are graduating this year, and they put signs in all the seniors' yards. So it was amazing to see all their Twitter posts and how excited they were to really acknowledge our seniors during this difficult time, that they're not getting some of the celebrations they're used to. But what our teachers are just doing such important work right now and stepping up every single day. So it's just been great to watch that.
That's really outstanding. And just to kind of give context to why we're doing this, I think, a cornerstone of my lifetime of service and then also of the campaign that we try and adopt here is the motto, I am, we are. And really what that focuses on is the impact that an individual can have in shaping and molding the community, but also the way the community can impact an individual. And like that speaks right to your example that you just gave of teachers going in and putting signs in the yards of those that are graduating that this is their time, and they're not able to have the normal ceremonies that let them feel that this is their time. So they're doing things in small ways during a time of COVID to make sure that they know that we're thinking about them and that, this is still a milestone and we want to celebrate that milestone and be responsible while we're celebrating it. Why I wanted to highlight you both though too is that I think a lot of individuals, voters, members of society can be distracted by the big shiny, and not that, the role of president or Senate aren't important, but I think a lot of the day-to-day that impacts people's lives really happens on y'all's level. And I think a lot of us, and I'll include me in that, can be sometimes ignorant about the impact that you guys have on our day-to-day lives. So if you wanted to talk a little bit more about yourself and the journey that inspired you to run, the issues that that have defined your service or that you want to define your service, and then kind of transition into kind of what it's like to serve in a time of COVID-19. So Candace, if you want to get started there.
Well, thank you, David. For me, wanting to serve came down to wanting to make a difference in my community. As you know, Centennial is a young city. We'll be 20 this September. we are a self-determined city. We were not, we don't have a long history. We are exactly 20 years old. We were formed out of a need to take control over what was happening around us. We were in a situation where there were land grabs between different municipalities. Centennial lost a lot of commercial base. We were going to be actually not even given the benefit of our taxes. So early on, with the early founding of Centennial, we were living here, my family and I, in 1992. And we decided, yes, we want to have self-determination with our taxes. We want to have a city and be part of the city that we can help shape and mold. So, living here, working in Centennial, it really inspired me to take a part to make sure that our city was what everybody wanted it to be. And of course, there's a lot of wants, but more than
Yeah.
anything, including everybody, being a very inclusive city, not saying, well, when you're on this side of town, it's like this, but just a homogenous, welcoming, equal city where everybody felt safe, that we were kind to each other. And I think our city during this time of this epidemic, or I should say pandemic, we are actually showing that. We have managed in our city to, have the effect of the restaurants closing and the gyms, and those are all big part of our city budget as far as revenue. But we're busy marketing and trying to encourage everybody to go out and support our local small businesses. We've managed to not have any layoffs in the city. We're keeping all our employees working from home safely, but no layoffs. If they're working for the city, they're not worried right now about being laid off because we're only a city of 70 employees. And being that streamlined, everybody's job is very vital. We've also managed still to stay debt free. Uh, I'm sure everybody's heard the stories about cities who are having to lay off, who've hit their reserve fund. We haven't. We're trying to make it through this pandemic, keep our finances solid, not take on any debt, not hit our reserve, and still provide the vital functions that people need to feel that they're in a good place, a safe city. We are maintaining our roads, we're maintaining our infrastructure, our traffic. So I think we're doing okay right now during this pandemic. But the reason that we're able to do it is because of what our citizens have asked for. And I just want to say out there to everybody who's living in Centennial that we are working for you. We realize we're in this all together. And as representative to you, I'm going to do my dead level best to make sure that we get through this as a city with as little pain as possible.
All right, that's great. And Christine, do you want to follow that up?
Sure. So a little bit about me and why I decided to run. So I grew up in the Denver metro area and have always been very active in the community, volunteering in the boys' schools, and I was part of our neighborhood association, volunteered in that, and volunteered in my church and things like that. So I decided to run because my boys were older and didn't need me as much. And I felt like this would be a great opportunity to also serve the community in a little bit broader perspective. And I'm also a small business owner, so I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to city council, working a 9-to-5 job, you just don't have the flexibility that you need to go to different events and things like that. So I kind of had an opportunity that provided that, and decided, okay, let me try. So and thankfully the voters supported that. So I'm very fortunate. I have really enjoyed my time on city council so far. It's been quite a learning experience. Obviously at the beginning, going to different events and just hearing from the school districts, from talking about energy and things like that. I'm on the open space and South Suburban boards with City Council. So that's been interesting. And I am just truly amazed at the staff that we have at the City of Centennial, because truly they have gone from an organization, going into a building every single day to, seamlessly working from home and still being able to provide the services to our citizens without our citizens seeing any decline in that service whatsoever. So our city manager made, before there's a stay at home, he had each department work from home to ensure that they could do their jobs and their functions. And it was a seamless transition. Our IT department has brought everybody up to speed. So I can't speak highly enough of the staff at Centennial right now. And to Candace's point, we're lean. Like there's 70 employees for 110,000 in our community. So we're the 10th largest city, but our staff is only 70, and it's amazing what they get done. And I think being a small business owner, I see that perspective and bring that not only to City Council, but our economic development team and our communications team, focusing on, our small businesses. How can we get the word out? Who's available? Our city website has an entire list of restaurants that are available right now that are doing takeaway. So we encourage people to go to the City of Centennial website, look to, if you're tired of making dinner, go ahead and get takeaway. And then we just recently, City of Centennial just recently, yesterday, came up with a loan program for some small businesses in our Centennial community. So that's on our website as well. And I think, we on City Council, we're doing everything we can within budget constraints so that our citizens are well taken care of. We're making difficult decisions, but we want to make sure that we maintain a lot of the level of services that our citizens have come to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you talk about ways we can support the community, and that's important to talk about. But to put a funny note on it, I've actually started doing more cooking since this has happened, and unfortunately, with some stuff that's going on, my fiance had to go to upstate New York to take care of her parents for a little bit during all this. It's not COVID related, but I've started cooking a lot more, and she's like, "Really?" So I leave, and that's when you decide to start cooking. I better see some of that when I get back. So. Yeah,
we know what you're going to be doing when she returns.
That's right.
I'm going to be so excited that she's back. So I'm starting to turn into a crazy dog person. I'm starting to talk to my chihuahuas a little too much, and being that way, people that are isolated by themselves, I feel you. So if you ever want somebody to chat with, I'm here. Not to sound desperate or anything like that, but no. But so bringing up some great resources and great things that we can do to help out in the community. Is there something unique that to the city of Centennial? In the way that COVID-19 might be impacting them, or do you think there's a lot of commonality between Centennial, Littleton, Highlands Ranch, and what's going on there with this?
I think that there's more commonality than uniqueness. We are all in the Tri-County region, Tri-County Health. And so we have been taking our lead from the governor's office as well as from Tri-County. We are all doing the social distancing. The mask in my area, HD 38. It was amazing to see how many people were making masks, and that was when we could still kind of get out to the fabric store. But everybody I knew was making masks and knew different ways to make them, and that's vital because being able to cover up and being able to make masks for hospital staff around the state, it's vital information. It's a vital skill. So, we've all been dusting off our sewing machines.
And I got to give a shout out right now to one of my volunteers, because Delwyn Mabin, one of my volunteers, his mom works in the healthcare industry, and he put it upon himself to do a GoFundMe, raise for the materials and the cloth, and started immediately sewing. Offered one to my partner Kate, because she's a CNA at the CU Medical Center. So yeah, the way the communities come together that way has been pretty heartwarming and inspiring, right?
It is awesome.
Yeah. All right. So what lessons do you think we in Centennial should learn from COVID-19? And then if you want to expound further, like what do you think we should be learning as a state and what should we be learning as a nation?
I think as a community here, we really realize how interdependent we are on each other.
Yeah.
Um, we have a good life here. If we wake up and decide we don't want to cook, we go get breakfast. We have lots of service industry here. And I think that before COVID-19, we were taking our service industry for granted. We were taking our abundance of grocery stores and our fellow citizens who work in the grocery stores, we were taking them for granted as well. Having this happen, we realized a new appreciation of people. I hear it all the time. I monitor next door. I myself have a new appreciation of what people go through. I think as on the whole, though, what is pointed out to me is that our our hospitals, our medical backbone needs attention. Hospitals have been working independently of each other. I think that needs to be looked at. I think hospitals need to start sharing resources and information. Someone will say, well, my hospital's not feeling any of the COVID effect yet. Another hospital says, well, we're bracing for it. We know it's coming. Other hospitals, they're busy. So I think we really need to look at our healthcare and how our hospitals are run and managed in the state as well as in the country, because as wealthy as we are overall in this country, for me it's I can't find a reason to explain why we are struggling so getting
Right.
supplies and ventilators and personal equipment. um, 3 people in my family are nurses, and each one has a different experience because they're at different hospitals. So I think this is really pointed out that we need to look at our medical in this country. We need to look at how our hospitals are being managed.
Yeah, this brings me to a question then to both of you guys is how do you see different levels of government then collaborating, coordinating with hospitals to make sure that when the next epidemic or pandemic hits or next crisis hits, that's going to require a lot of medical attention. What is the best way that municipal can work with these hospitals? Municipal can work with state can work with these hospitals. Any ideas off the top of your head?
I think for me, I grew up as a beneficiary of public health as a child. And I remember I grew up in Arkansas, and I remember the public health nurse coming to our home, and my mother would line us all up. There were 13 of us, and the public health nurse would give us a little mini physical right there in the living room, and she would do follow-up care. So I was very receptive to public health, and I truly support organizations that we have like Tri-County Health. I was somewhat surprised that people had no information about their connectedness to Tri-County Health. Um, for Centennial, we need to be more open to the idea that we need to have somewhere in there a direct line to health, mental health, as well as physical health. We have started that as a new city, because we do pay our law enforcement to have co-responders now for mental health. But before COVID-19, we really had no straight line avenue to public health. And so I think public health needs to be out in municipalities. And we also need to make ourselves available to public health. Um, Hearing neighboring counties who are part of Tri County, their questions about just how does Tri County fit into the scheme of things. Uh, that shows to me that there's a lack of understanding of Tri County's role in public health, which everybody has access to at some point. It's whether people choose to use it and understand how it works. So I think it would be beneficial on the local level for us to get more involved with our Tri-County health system.
Great. Christine, anything to add to that?
I echo everything that Candace just said. And, you know, I think it's unfortunate that it takes something as catastrophic as the pandemic is to really shed a light for people to see that our healthcare system that doesn't work for all of us affects all of us. So if you have a good job and you have good healthcare, when a pandemic strikes, you're still worried about the person that doesn't, or you should be concerned because that it could impact your health. And I think, you know, I think it's opened a lot of people's eyes to that. So I definitely agree with Candace, you know, that, and hopefully we see some changes from this.
Great. Not to interrupt, but I just want to let y'all know that Vida Brown's with us, and she says hi to both of y'all. So
Hi, Vida.
Hi.
So I want to go off of that point, because one of the main one of my priorities when it comes to that is that healthcare is a right, and that comes from my own personal experience of, you know, having survived a catastrophic crash when I was deployed in Afghanistan. And if I didn't have access to healthcare, I wouldn't have been able to regain my independence. I can live alone. I mean, I have a partner; she's gone right now, but I was able to regain my independence. But not only that, not only was I able to do the bare minimum, but I was also able to get back into community, into society. I do a lot of nonprofit work. I've been an advocate and lobbyist for veterans. And that's with access to healthcare that's not tied to a job. I mean, obviously I had access to healthcare because I was hurt in the military service, but can you imagine what it would be like if every citizen had access to affordable and quality healthcare, and how much differently this pandemic would have gone if they had access to healthcare? And now in a time when a lot of our fellow citizens are losing their jobs and having to depend on unemployment benefits, how beneficial it would be if they had healthcare that wasn't tied to losing a job. I mean, for me, healthcare is a right, and you kind of alluded a little bit to that, Christine, maybe not going that far, but saying we need to make sure that our citizenry has access to healthcare. We're looking at it differently because of the pandemic, but also going back to, you know, paid family and paid sick leave, and how that could have turned the tide, or how that could have helped us fight, you know, this pandemic earlier on. And then I want to go back to y'all's conversation about essential personnel and what that means, like how much more we're appreciating those that are stocking the shelves and those that are doing the work. I mean, my entire life, I mean, my grandfather was a sharecropper. You know, my dad was one of 9 kids. My mom immigrated from Mexico when she was 15. We were always taught to respect everyone the same. We don't care if it's the janitor or the CEO. That's a value that we've been put in with. And then growing up in this country, we get this attitude that if someone's a janitor, it's because they made bad life choices. Or if someone is working wait staff, it's because they made bad life choices. And that's so counter to the value that I've been taught, that an honest day's work has dignity, period. And I think we're really seeing that now. I mean, the essential personnel isn't me. I'm at home. It's that individual that's cleaning that hospital. It's that nurse. It's that CNA. It's the person that's cooking your food. It's the person that's doing the gig driving to deliver your food. So I think it's reframing the discussion on how we view work, and how we need to return the dignity to all work, and then also how we view healthcare, I think. So those are really awesome lessons that I'm glad y'all are bringing up a little bit. Maybe I'm taking it a little bit further than y'all would, and chime in if I am, but you know, definitely something that I hope we are all considering as we're going through a time of COVID. So I do have a question here, and I want to frame it this way. What do you feel about the measures that we're taking when it comes to social distancing, when it comes to shutting down aspects of the economy, shutting down aspects of our day-to-day life?
Well, I'll start. I think social distancing is working. Okay. The numbers show that it's working. It's difficult to do social distancing because we as humans are very social people, whether we think not, but we really do enjoy being around each other. Our whole structure of society is made to be like, yes, we go to a restaurant and we sit down and we eat, and we are very carefree. We walk, we get on public transportation, we drive our cars, we love outdoor concerts. Living here in Colorado, it's a very social state. This has been a change for it to be so quiet. No concerts, no outside venues, no venues, period. Not even being able to go to church. I go to church on Zoom, and that is quick in the sense that I don't have to drive anywhere, but I do miss seeing my people. I think that my biggest concern, I am concerned about how fast we open up. I don't want to have a relapse of COVID-19, but I don't know that the way we're doing this is sustainable. I'm worried that the country being closed is going to really affect our economy, and maybe not in a good way. I worry that if businesses have to stay closed and people can't return to their jobs, our service industry here in Centennial is so important. I worry how some of these businesses are making it who have had to close, like our salons, spas, where we have intimate touching.
Yeah.
I worry about those people because I'm like, that's a lot of people in Centennial who have their own private shops, people who are cleaning houses. We are a big service city. So I'm praying that they make it through this pandemic and come out okay. I don't know on the federal side about, can we continue to, as a country, issue these $1 trillion packages. We're looking at phase 4 now, and what's the dollar going to be worth when we do this? Because we were already in debt when we started as a country, and is our economy going to be strong, and is the dollar going to remain strong, or are we all in this world going to be at the bottom and all of us climbing our way back up?
Yeah.
So I have some concerns about that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, when I think of all that, I think these are all very valid concerns, and we need to start working together. That's the whole I am, we are, right? Working together on how we are going to bring back our economy, how we're going to support the worker and the working family, because they're the ones that drive the engine of the economy, bottom line. I mean, a lot of the assistance and aid should be going to the worker and the working families, because they're going to be the ones that drive this economy going forward. Something I've learned from my time in the military, regardless of your political stripes, your religion, your faith, what's been ingrained in me is this deep belief and faith in the American people and who we are and the strength we have when we come together. I think this is a very unique time because we've never gone through anything like this, at least in my lifetime. I know it's happened, 100 years ago, maybe, 80, 90 years ago, maybe. But this is a really unique time. But at the end of the day, I have faith in each other and in ourselves and in the way we will work as a community to truly do what's good. I mean, I do think we have some difficult decisions to make and some tough times ahead, but I have faith in the American people at the end of the day. And I know that pulling together and working together and pulling our resources together, we'll be able to bring back a thriving economy that recognizes the work of the essential worker, the working families, the worker after all this. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and it's an important topic to talk about. Go ahead.
Can I just add to that point? I just saw something on Facebook today that said, we were social distancing. We took care of the people that had underlying health conditions, the elderly, this and that, and it showed our humanity. And I think that's, it's amazing to me how we are coming together and showing our humanity by taking care of each other, by staying at home and being social distant. And I don't know about you guys, but I now have a little bit extra time that I sit on my front porch, and I've met more neighbors walking by than I have in a couple of years, just because, our time has gotten a little slower.
Yeah.
In my household, I understand families that have younger kids that are teaching them school and working full time, not so much. But and then there was another point. Oh, I was talking to a family friend, and she mentioned the fact, she's older. She mentioned that she remembers this at the time of polio, and how in their summers they had to stay inside because of polio. So those of us, on the call might not remember that because we weren't around then. But at the same time, this isn't a one-time occurrence. It has happened before. We're just, we just need to do what we need to do to take care of each other.
Yeah, and going off of what you're talking about, like being able to communicate more with neighbors, even though you're social distancing safely, it gives you a new perspective about why dogs get so excited when someone passes by the window, right? You're like,
Yeah.
hey, what's going on, neighbor? I haven't seen you in a while. What's up?
Yes, exactly.
That's but yeah, so I took this as a time too. You know, all of my partner's classes went virtual. She still worked. She works at CNA, so she was still going to work. But I really enjoyed being able to see a lot more of her. And like the campaign is evolving, I'm still being active and working that way, but it has slowed down in certain ways. So just be able to spend more time with her and kind of take a breath in all this and really appreciate the amazing things that we do have. I know these are tough times, but you know, one perspective that suffering this injury, having survived a crash on deployment and then having to rebuild my life has given me is, as long as you draw breath, you can always find joy in it. We're always going to have hard times. We're always going to go through stuff. Everyone has their own individual crosses and things they have to deal with. Really, what's going to matter the most is your perspective and the attitude of gratitude that you can have for the good things that you still have in your life. Yeah, we're going to be going through difficult times, but again, this goes back to having faith in the human spirit and the faith in the American spirit and what it's going to mean to come out of this together and how we're going to unite as a community together. So just to lighten a little bit, I really want to use this as an opportunity for people to get to know you as well. First, I want to say I know you guys are continuing to work. You guys are just doing it in a different way. So let's speak to that for a second. So what are the ways that you're still engaging with City Council and making sure you're meeting the needs of your community? And keep that to a minute or two if you can.
Well, we are doing our meetings via Zoom. So what we do, we have our Monday regular meeting via Zoom, and then we have a Friday workshop via Zoom. These meetings are open to the public. We ask that they put their questions up before the meeting so that they can be addressed. I thought myself as a council member, we were a little slow as a city council to figure out how to meet because I was like, the first Monday in March, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, we got to figure out how to meet. We can't just not meet. Didn't want to meet outside, but I was happy that our IT department figured out, okay, we can put everybody on Zoom. So that is how we're meeting. That is how we're conducting business.
Yeah. Great. And Christine, anything to add to that? Or?
No, Candace covered it. So.
Yeah, so I mean, John Stone, who's a city council member of Inglewood, who also supports this, a friend of this campaign, supports this campaign, mentioned that they had a rule that they had to meet together in person during a time of COVID to change because they weren't, you know, according to the rule, they weren't allowed to govern via video chat. So I'm sure there's municipalities that have had to think of new ways to do it and continue serving the people. One thing that impresses me about the city of Centennial is how frugal you all are. I mean, you guys have so few government employees per 110,000 citizens and the work y'all do. And I think in some ways it's going to insulate us a little bit from the impact, the economic impact when so many budgets are going to be cut a little bit. So here's to hoping, you know, given that you guys have been so frugal throughout, that you guys will continue to be able to keep everyone. But let's go ahead and transition into talking about some fun topics. I want to ask you a question. When you are allowed to, what is your favorite outdoor Coloradan activity here?
Well, I'm not a skier. I learned that back in the early 90s that I am not a skier person. I think I waited too long to learn. So my biggest enjoyment outdoors is walking and hiking. I am not an outdoor camper. I did too much of that in the Air Force. So I like my creature comforts. So basically I am a walker and a hiker.
Awesome. All right, walking and hiking, love it. And there's beautiful scenery to do it here. What about you, Christine?
Yeah, we love going hiking. You know, I would say my husband's from England, so we are a soccer family. So the thing I'm most excited about is going to a kids' soccer game and standing on the sidelines and watching them play. As much as we complained about the travel and the practices and this and that, it's amazing how much you miss those things. And we're kind of on the tail end of it. My husband coaches younger kids. He's got a couple teams that are like, I think they're 9 or 10-year-olds. And that fills him up every single Saturday. And so we're looking forward to seeing some kids sports and going on some hikes and taking the dog out for, the dog gets to go for a walk every day, but it'll be nice to get him up in the mountains a little bit.
Outstanding. And as for me, part of the reason why I settled here and moved here is because Colorado is a mecca for adaptive sports. So big shout out to all the amazing adaptive sports programs here, Adaptive Ventures, NSCD, BOEC, Toyota Adaptive Sports, Ignite. If I missed you, I'm sorry. You're the reason why I live here. I downhill ski, I cross country ski, I mountain bike, I road bike, I do kayak, and I love to camp. So, the beauty of Colorado is something that I appreciate and respect, and we need to continue to protect it and support our state and national parks for sure. All right, let's see. Talk to me about your campaigns and about your service in the community. And if you have a moment with a volunteer that sticks out in your head that you would like to thank, or if you have a moment with a constituent, whether they challenge you or they inform you of what's going on in the community, if you guys want to touch on that.
Well, we moved here after my husband retired from the Air Force at Carswell in Fort Worth. We moved here in 1991. I was working for the federal government, so I transferred my position up here as well. Mm-hmm. We finally found a house in 1992 where we are right now. Our youngest son, wanted to be in Boy Scouts, and he came home and he would have been in the entry. So he started out at the elementary school level and he liked it. And we were very supportive. And so that was really the biggest opening for us into the community, was getting involved in Boy Scouts, because we actually got to know the community in unincorporated Arapahoe County, which became Centennial. Mm-hmm. So even still to this day, people see us and the connection with those people, as we all raised our kids together in Boy Scouts. Right. My husband first served on Centennial City Council. He was elected. He had 4-year terms. He was called back to fulfill a term, so he actually ended up doing 10 years on City Council. His seat became vacant. I ran for it because I could see that there was still a need to participate in the city. It was something that I wanted to do on my own. You might hear jokes that I said, if you did it, I could do it too. That's the running line in our house. But
anything you can do, I can do better, right? That song. That's what pops in my head when you say that.
But that's not really that's our running joke. But the truth of the matter is that at the time we didn't have people who really wanted to run. They were like, well, I'll do it maybe. And so I said, I'll run. And I was in a position to do it. When I lived in Fort Worth, I always regretted that I couldn't run because I was a federal employee. And Miss Richards, who was the governor, called my house.
Oh, wow.
Literally that evening. And Ann Richards, if any of you remember her,
mm-hmm.
she was governor
female of Democrat governor. Yep. Everyone thinks that Texas has always been red. That's not always been the case.
It blew me away that she called me and asked me to get involved in my community there in Fort Worth. And I was like, darn it, I can't right now. And I had to explain to her why, because the federal law didn't allow me to. So once that opened up, I took full advantage of it. And I'm glad that I did. This is this that we're going through now. It's every day that I figure out, okay, I'm going to get up and what can I do to make sure that we're okay as a city, that we're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. So I take my public service seriously. I worked for the federal government for a total of 35 years in Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security. I also have active duty and reserve duty, military in the Air Force as part of that. I've tried to instill into my children the value of public service. Some of them have went the public service route. Some of it are in private industry, but regardless of where they are, they know that they have a public duty, if it's nothing more than to uphold the laws of the country, be aware of what they're doing and the impact of what they're doing has on other people. My father was a standing member of the local NAACP back in the 50s and 60s when we were going through such tremendous racial inequality in this country. And I remember as a child him coming home, and initially everything was happy and gay, and I don't use the word gay as in sexual terms, but people were just carefree. And he would come home and my mom would come home and they would have balloons for all of us. And then one day all that changed. They came home and they were extremely sad and unhappy, and it was because they were getting threats about their community activism. And I thought, how awful that because people didn't appreciate their community activism, it affected our family, because we went from being carefree to having to be careful. Watch yourself. Don't do this, don't do that. And so those experiences as a child really taught me the value of being involved in our community and speaking up, using my voice to speak for everybody, not for any one particular group, but for all people, just being as inclusive as I can be and making sure that people are treated equitably and equally, and that we as a city are modeling our core values. We're not just saying them, but that we make sure when we pass an ordinance that we are not singling out any group, that it's for the better of the entire community.
Okay, great.
So for my campaign, I do want to recognize I have several people who have been with me through them. This year, John Stone, he was very influential, but Rex Sabotnik, Rex lives in HD 38, and this man has worked my campaign for the last 8 years. And
awesome.
He worked my husband's campaign for the last 8 years. And I tell you, when you get to know somebody like Rex, who is quietly but always willing to go out there and help you knock on doors and meet people and can tell you the lay of the land, Rex has been the steadfast person on our campaign. I also had a lot of other people this year who stepped forward, people who didn't even live in our city. A friend of mine, Jessica Gray, I knew her as a child, and she came up with my daughter and granddaughter and helped knock on doors. I had people just calling me and asking, can I pass out your literature here in HD 38? So this community has really stepped up to make sure that our voices are heard. And I just want to give a shout out to some of those people inside Centennial and outside Centennial.
Christine, I'm gonna let you answer that question. We have a couple questions here that I want to recognize coming from our listeners and those that are watching in. First of all, Christine, what soccer team do you support?
So first off, you're talking to the wrong Sweetland. So if it wasn't for the Darby County Rams, which if it wasn't for the Darby County Rams, I wouldn't have met my husband. They played the U.S. national team at Mile High Stadium in 1999. And because of that, I met my husband. So obviously we're Darby County Rams fans, which they are not in the Premier League. They're the league below that in the English Premier League. So they're the step below. And then obviously we are Littleton Soccer family here and Arapahoe Warriors. So the ABK is huge in our house. So those are the three that mean the most to me.
All right, I'll fill one more question. We'll go back to the original one. And this is coming from Will Johnson. It says, obviously there's a lot of vet experience in this chat. In your guys' opinion, how do you think the military will adapt to life after the pandemic? And if we can keep that to a couple minutes, have any ideas? Or, I mean, I can touch on that a little bit. You know, we've been watching a couple scenarios unfold, right? Around what happened on the Roosevelt and a couple of different ships, and kind of the tussle that's been caused by leadership based on what's going on. And, you know, we always put the mission first, but I think part of that mission is putting your soldiers, your sailors, your airmen first, and making sure that we have the right protective equipment, and that we, I think for the most part, our military has been doing outstanding when it comes to having the protective gear and reacting really well, and then also supporting state governments when it comes to the National Guard being called up and doing the work. But we can always do better, right? We always have room for improvement. And I think that we're seeing steps being taken in the right direction. I'm not sure if you all have anything to add to that.
I just want to add that I think our military has been very adaptive to the situation. I'll use my youngest son as an example. He's a major in the Army Reserve in Texas, and he doesn't have a medical background, but he works for a medical outfit. And when they decided to start setting up the hospitals, they didn't have a lot of people available because the doctors and nurses in the military were already tasked.
Mm-hmm.
So they started looking deeper, and they pulled a group together and said, "You're going to be our medical corps." We all laughed, but the truth of the matter was he had the background. They were able to look at these guys and these women and say, "You're a logistics person. You're a planner. You know how to put things together. You know how to make equipment move. Everybody else is gone. We want you to do this in a medical setting." After looking at this and listening to what he was going through, I thought, that's pretty doggone smart to be that adaptive. It took us as a state a long time to say, hey, if you retired medical background and you want to come to work, you can come. Duh. I think the military was spot on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the way the National Guard has stepped up to assist states, and that's kind of what their role always has been and will be in the future. So, and I'm glad that leadership, despite a hiccup here and there, are really looking for ways to truly protect the soldier, the airman, the service member, to make sure that they're doing the work for us here in this country safely. So appreciate that. Did you want to take that?
Everybody out there that's doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got a few minutes left. I really want to give you an opportunity, Christine, to really quickly touch on maybe the volunteer constituent that's helped out your campaign, and then we'll kind of wrap things up.
So mine was a very grassroots organization. I was amazed how many people were willing to help with my campaign. So I can't list them all here. I will say that my book group, they were amazing to me. Not only were they supportive emotionally and really got behind and said, you should do this, but they wrote postcards, they knocked out. I had friends in my book group, there's a couple people that said, don't ever ask me to knock on a door, I'm not going to do that. And then be like, well, why don't you give me some flyers and I'll just go for 5 minutes, but I'm not going very long. So if it wasn't for my book group, they were huge. I'll say Susie Bourne, Ruth Huff, Pam Gale, those ladies are rock stars. They were
Yes,
amazing and very supportive, all in HD 38. And I agree, Rex was very supportive. So Peggy Hansen was my treasurer and my rock in my guiding principles and making sure that, I saw every side of an issue. So I'm just really fortunate. And obviously my husband, who I don't give enough credit to, but took on so much so that I could go out and campaign and was so supportive through all this. So I really guess I should shout out Andy as well, because he was very supportive when I make these, hey, I'm going to try this. Okay.
Outstanding. And I got to give a shout out to
the guys in our lives.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I got to echo that sentiment, just because when my fiance puts up with it's work. It's a lot of work to run a campaign and do the work and aspire to serve the community. So shout out to my fiance, Kate, for that. Love you. You're the best. Glad you're taking care of your parents in upstate New York. Keep doing that. And a shout out to volunteers too. And I'm just going down the list. HD 38 has been phenomenal when it comes to the volunteers, from, you know, Carolyn, Jody, Cindy, Kurt, like the leadership there, but also the volunteers with Rex, John Zek, I mean, Kurt, Pam, Susie, some of the names that we've already mentioned. It really is a community that pulls together, that makes this happen. And now, you know, being recently endorsed by movers and shakers in the community like Vida and Lori Ritchie and just others, that's what makes this possible, is a community pulling together, whether they feel more comfortable making phone calls or knocking on doors. It really takes an entire community to make this happen, and getting our values elected at all levels of government, whether we're talking about city council members that are impacting the day-to-day, really the rubber on the road, what you experience, like with what you all do, all the way up to Congressman Crow, all the way up to senators, presidents. I mean, we can't do this without you. We need you all to be as involved as possible to make sure we're representing that voice and your concerns. You know, I just got to say that I've been really impressed with what you all have spoken to here. The fact that y'all are continuing the work despite, you know, in a time of COVID, with your IT person hooking y'all up to make sure that you can address the concerns of resources, pay, and security during this time. I think, you know, you both have done a great job giving shout out to Colorado essential workers, whether we're talking about nursing staff, doctors, CNAs, custodial staff, those that are stocking the grocery shelves, doing checkout, doing the delivering of the food, and that you guys are still vigilant. You're on the job, making sure that you can keep this going, and then also react to concerns that come up as the situation changes. So for all of that, thank you both so much for your service and what you do. I really appreciate y'all spending the time here with me today and talking about that. So with that, if there's any parting words that you'd like to leave everybody with, something to think about at the end.
I just want to say thank you, David. Thank you for your support to me during my campaign. And I really am proud of you. And I'm hoping everybody votes for you. And even though we are in COVID, like you said, the human nature is strong. We keep the faith, and we will get through this, and we'll rebuild our lives. And we may come back even stronger than ever before if we all work together and stay together. And I have to give out a shout out to my husband, who was just like Christine's husband. He took a load off my shoulders, and he was my compass during this campaign. So thank you, David. Thank you for everything. And you too, Christine.
Yeah. And I'm going to echo what Candace says, David. I think we have such a great candidate. I'm so glad you're running for HD 38. I know you're going to represent us really well. So I hope that everybody will support you and do what they can during this time of COVID. If it's making phone calls, writing postcards, obviously you can't do a lot of door knocking. And then my last thing is, go to the Centennial website, go to the restaurant page, and order takeout tonight from one of our Centennial restaurants.
Great. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to throw y'all's social media up on the banner during the live broadcast. So if you guys want to post some stuff on your social media, like COVID-19 resources or local businesses that are still delivering or that are still open during this time. So all of y'all watching or listening below, you can find Christine at Sweetland for Centennial. And then you can find Candace Moon. It's going to be at Candace Moon CCD1. And mine, obviously, is going to be David D. Ortiz CO. You can find all my social media that way. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and just having this conversation and giving us something to do and some way to interact. This is what I Am We Are is about. I mean, that's been the cornerstone of my lifetime of service. That's what's called me, is amazing community leaders like you, whether I'm talking about instructors, professors, teachers, volunteers. This is what allows me and motivates me and inspires me to continuing to overcome obstacles. And I think I would suspect, based on what y'all are saying, that's what does it for you. So, I mean, we've got, again, thank you so much, Christine Sweetland and Candace Moon. We are Centennial City Council member. My name is David Ortiz. Please check us out at our website at the campaign. You'll find that at www.davidortizcolorado.com. I got to end with the ask. I know everybody's going through a hard time right now, but if you're able to, our only ask for this month is we're trying to fundraise at least the salary for our amazing staff. Give what you can. We're trying to, in a time when so many of our counterparts and our citizens are having to depend on unemployment and are struggling, this can be a small way that you can make sure that you're impacting the lives of people. You know, my staff and my group of volunteers are amazing. So check it out. It's going to be davidortizcolorado.com. Give what you can. I am David Ortiz, and we are HD 38. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.